Shabbat Shalom. Today is Saturday, the 20th of July, precisely a week after the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. And I thought it would be a good time, given what I've observed of the subsequent response to that assassination attempt and the campaigning, electioning of Trump and Biden, and I hear, I'm not confirmed, I don't know for sure, because I just saw something, and I haven't really gone into it to see further, that President Biden has contracted COVID. So interesting things afoot, and I thought it would be a good time, given all of this, to look into something I have been speaking about since 2016, and that is the whole question of the tribulation. Not so much the tribulation, I'm not going to focus on the tribulation so much today, as the tribulation is the time when the antichrist is revealed. And so most biblical end times scholars are looking for a person, and it's quite a complex story. So I will, if I can get it together to get my head around the technology issues, to include a link to previous messages I've given on this issue, where I go into these things in more detail, particularly the whole significance of 2017, the year 2017. And so kind of just giving a very brief overview, and what I want to focus on today is just a few of the characteristics that are revealed in the scriptures about this person that people are looking for, who is usually referred to as the Antichrist. It's kind of a incorrect term, because it's a leader. Daniel refers to him as a horn. He's one of the horns of the on this beast, and really the whole beast itself is the Antichrist. But there is another beast. There are two beasts, and the second beast is the one really that people usually think of when referring to the Antichrist. But in fact, what he is really is what some scholars call a false prophet, and he is the spokesperson and the person who causes everyone to follow the beast. The beast himself, I do feel, based on what we will read now from Daniel, a number of passages from the book of Daniel, so you can open at Daniel chapter 7, chapter 9, chapter 11, and then Revelation 13. So that's where we will be focusing on today. And we will be looking into some of the characteristics of this beast, who I do believe is represented by a person. So we'll get into that. Going back a little bit, just to give you a little bit of background, with particular reference to Trump, because when he took office the first time, it was in 2017, and 2016 and 17, I did a series of seminars on biblical end times, and one of the things I focused on was the significance of the year 2017, and the things that led up to kind of highlighting the significance of 2017, which were things like the blood moons, which people have spoken a lot on, and then everyone expected a great event to happen, and then nothing really very obvious happened, and so everyone, this is human nature. So we get all excited about something, and then nothing happens, And then everyone goes, oh, well, there's a false news, fake news. Nothing happened. It was nothing. And so it was all of these doomsday prophets have got pie in their face again because now nothing happened. Well, my seminar and all the information that I put together and the graph that I created from that information shows me very clearly that nothing is for nothing. And all of these things did and do still have significance. And so the blood moons, all of the things, there were a lot more than the blood moons. There was a whole lot of stuff happening from 2011 leading up to 2017. And the main issue behind all of that is that they fit 3.5 year cycles. And those 3.5 year cycles, significant events happening in 3.5 year cycles, hasn't stopped since 2017. And so if you understand anything of the end times biblical eschatology, then you will know that 3.5 years, 1,260 days, as we mentioned it last week, or 42 months, those three references are all to the same period of time, 3.5 years from a biblical perspective, 360 days in a biblical year. And so they refer to, or should I say, the final 7 years before Messiah returns, before Messiah comes, for those of you who, my Jewish friends who don't believe he's been yet. For us who believe that Yeshua is the Messiah, and he has already been as Messiah ben Yosef, and he's coming again as Messiah ben David, he comes again. Before he comes again, there is a 7 year period in which this antichrist figure rules. We only know, really, for the last 3.5 years, who or what this antichrist figure is. It's then that he reveals himself. And so leading up to that, we won't know for sure. So everything I'm going to share with you today is ideas, speculations, based on what we see in the text and what we see out in the world, in the geopolitical wranglings that are going on in the world. So I'm not saying that this is it for sure. I'm not prophesying. I'm not saying that I'm a scholar who has worked out the figures and the details and the proofs, and this is it. I'm just speculating as to what does the text say and what does it look like in the world. As I said before, when I spoke on the message that I entitled "The Jews Taking Over the World," what the prophecies that we see in Daniel and Revelation, very, very kind of apocalyptic, very metaphorical or allegorical, have real life, comparable real life realities, and we know that from what was fulfilled in events such as Alexander the Great and his 4 generals that took over after him, Nebuchadnezzar, the Medo-Persian empires that followed, the Greek Empire that followed that under Alexander the Great, and then his 4 generals, and then the Romans that followed that. And all of this fits perfectly with Daniel's visions and those images that he saw. And so we can extrapolate from that what we should expect to see in the geopolitical world from the imagery that we find in Scripture. So 2017 was a very significant year in that the major significance was the Revelation chapter 12 sign. There is a picture painted in Revelation chapter 12 of a woman clothed in the sun, about to give birth, with the moon at her feet, with 12 stars at her head. That's an image that is painted in Revelation 12. That image was literally depicted in the sky, the literal sky, at night, in the stars in the clouds, the stars in the sky. Virgo is the constellation, the Virgin. It's a constellation. Jupiter is the king planet. Jupiter was in the womb of Virgo. The moon was at Virgo's feet. So if you know how the moon and the stars and the planets move, so this was the structure of the stars at that time, how they were arrayed in the sky at that time in 2017, on the 23rd of September, 2017. So Virgo had Jupiter in the womb, the moon was at her feet, and she had a crown of 12 stars at her head. The crown was made up of Leo, which is the constellation for Judah, the lion, the tribe of Judah. There were 9 stars in Leo, and then there were 3 planets, one of which was Mars, which is the war planet. 3 planets which made up the 12 stars that were at her head. And so this happened on the 23rd of September 2017. We know from just working out the timing that Yeshua will return, the Messiah will come on a Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruach, the Feast of Trumpets. The Messiah will come. Today, Israel celebrates it as Rosh Hashanah, the New Year. But in fact, it's Yom Teruach, the day of sounding. It's the day that the trumpet sounds, and it's the only feast that happens on a new moon, and it's the only feast in the beginning of the first of the month, the beginning of the month, and it's the only feast that has nothing. Well, it's not the only feast, but it's one of the feasts, one of the 2 feasts that has nothing else attached to it. No agricultural celebration, no historical celebration. It's kind of a standalone for no reason would appear. We know that the Messiah comes at the last trumpet. And so we expect him to come at Yom Teruach. So 3.5 years prior to that, or 7 years prior to that, will be the 7 years begins and ends with the Feast of Trumpets. So 2017, this sign that appeared in the sky was 2 days after Yom Teruach, the Feast of Sounding, the Day of Sounding. So it was a very, in my view of what's going on in the world and what the scriptures teach us, it was a very significant day. The fact that Trump took office the beginning of that year is very significant because we have 3 years. 3.5 years means that 6 months prior to that begins the half a year. And so it was the 20th of January that Trump was inaugurated into office. On the day that he was inaugurated, 20th of January 2017, he was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old. 777. So that is a significant biblical number. It's God's number. It's the number of 7 is the number of perfection or completion. And so people got very excited. Those who were supporters of Trump got very excited. Trump was arguably the greatest friend of Israel that Israel's ever had. And so they minted a coin with his head on it, and they called him Cyrus, the modern day Cyrus. Now, if you know biblical history, you'll know that Cyrus was the king of Babylon. So he was a pagan king. He was a Gentile king who showed favor to Israel and allowed Israel, Judah, who had been in captivity in Babylon for 70 years, he declared that they should return to Israel and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. And so they declared Trump a modern day Cyrus. So at that time, I speculated whether or not Trump could be this person, this figure. Okay, so now what I want to do is, now with what's happened, particularly with the assassination attempt and the fallout, what's the response to what's happened? The most notable response being the incredible amount of favor that Trump is now receiving, far more than he ever did. He was despised in the beginning. Only he came in by a small margin. He was favored by the right wing, completely despised and hated by the left wing. And now there's a big change in attitudes towards Trump. So I wanted to look at a few of the characteristics of this figure, and then I'll draw some comparisons with Trump, and then you can take it further. You can draw your own comparisons, and you can go and look at the scriptures and see for yourself. It's critical to know, because we are living in the time that Yeshua said in Matthew 24, verse 24, that even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. That means that nothing is as it appears. So, far from being any way left-wing myself, and someone who can see from a human earthly perspective the value of someone like Trump's attitude and policies and what have you, particularly with regard to the Middle East, um, I'm issuing a warning to all the elect, all those who are truly the children of God, who love Him and serve Him and want to know His truth above all else, not just to accept what churches and pastors and anyone, whoever says. Those who really want to go to the scriptures and see if these things be so. These are the true children of God. And so let's go into the first issue is Daniel speaks about heads and horns. Both Daniel and Revelation speak about this beast, this final beast, which is different to all the rest, which is horrific compared to all the rest, has 7 heads and 10 horns. I think, again, remember, I'm not prophesying. I'm not a prophet. I'm not anything other than someone who wants to know the truth and searches the truth to find as much truth as I possibly can. The 7 heads, this beast, it's a singular beast. We know from Daniel's prophecy that the beast represents the empire. So historically, the prophecies that were fulfilled already from Daniel's visions, from Nebuchadnezzar's vision of the statue, and the interpretation of that vision and the workings out of that vision through history, we know that the beast represents the empire. So this beast is a world system that controls the world at a particular time, in this case, the end times, the final days before Messiah comes. And so it's an empire that controls the world. So we have in the world, people look to a single nation because Babylon was a nation and Greece was a nation and Rome was a nation, but we are told that it's different to all the rest. And the vision of the beast illustrates that this beast is made up of 7 heads. So my argument, and I believe it's can be fairly surely held, that the 7 heads represent the nations. So there are 7 nations which make up the heads of this beast. So the controlling heads of this beast are 7 nations. I think that we can fairly safely assume that the G7 would be a good match for those 7 heads. And the reason I say that is because money makes the world go round. Power is money. Money is power. Those who have the money, I was told once, was a member of our church. He happened to be a fairly wealthy person. And he said to me, do you know the golden rule? And I said, of course I know the golden rule. I've studied theology. I'm a pastor. How can you ask me such a stupid question? You learn the golden rule in Sunday school. The golden rule, of course, is do unto others as you would have them do to you. So he says, no, you don't know the golden rule. So I said, I'm getting like irritated, man. Of course I know the golden rule. And he says, he who has the gold makes the rules. And I thought that was a brilliant summary of the reality of the world we live in. That is the way it is. It's what Scripture tells us in Proverbs. You can read it over and over in Proverbs, that the rich man has many friends, the poor man, even his friends reject him. So money makes the world go round. The G7 are the 7 most powerful financial countries of the world, nations of the world. So they're really the ones who pull the strings. Of course, we go into all the conspiracies of power and who really pulls the puppet strings of the earth. That's another story. But at least I think we could safely assume that G7 possibly would qualify as the 7 heads of this beast. The beast I've kind of put into a label, the label of corporatocracy. So corporatocracy would be democracy, the political system of democracy coupled with the commercial system of free enterprise. What's free enterprise called? It's gone out of the top of my head. Anyway, so corporatocracy is the free market coupled with the political system of democracy. We know that we don't have democracy is a joke. There's no real true democracy. The sum total of your democracy is that you have a vote when it comes time to vote. After that, the politicians in parliament decide what that vote means and what's going to happen with that vote and how it's going to play out as far as policies go. So corporatocracy, and so the money and the powers in the money, and so this would be the head. Now the horns, there are 10 horns, 7 heads, 10 horns. So it means that one or more of the heads has more than one horn, because there are only 7 heads. We are told in Daniel 7 that one of those horns subdues 3. So we're back to 7 horns. At the time of Trump's first inauguration, his first term of office, I speculated that if Trump qualified as the little horn, we will read it now in the scriptures to see why I say little horn. It's a little horn. That little horn subdues 3. And at the time, the Obamas, the Bushes, and the Clintons were very much still in the power seats, although not holding official office, still very much pulling the strings behind the scenes certainly in the American government. So Trump came in as a wild card, someone who was not into politics, not in politics, didn't grow up in politics, didn't make a career out of politics. He came from the outside. The others are all political, raised and nurtured politicians. Career politicians is what they're called. And so Trump came in as a complete wild card and subdued what was on the go, which added to the hatred of Trump. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7, and we'll just look at this issue of the heads and the horns. Daniel 7. Oh, Bab, won't you pass me that other Bible? Thanks. Daniel chapter 7. I'm not using my favorite Bible because this one has all my markings in it, so the highlights of what I need to remember. Daniel 7 verses 8, 20, and 24 is really where he touches on the horn, but I'm going to go from Daniel 7 verse 7. After that, in my vision at night I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts and had 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth that spoke boastfully as I looked. So there's the next word that I want to highlight, and that is the word boastful as we go through. in this passage, in chapter 7, 3 times it speaks of this horn being boastful. And at the time of Trump's first sitting, I was, it was astounding. To me, it was like screaming, because of all the words that could have been used to describe, arrogant would be an obvious one, or possibly the first one that would come to mind. When we speak about someone who's boastful, we usually refer to them as being arrogant. But it doesn't say arrogant. There are many, probably all world leaders are arrogant to one degree or another, but it's very rarely, and I certainly have never in my lifetime been confronted by a world leader who was so blatantly, openly boastful. It's one of the things that his critics really hammered. His boastfulness. Anyway, so this figure is described a number of times as being boastful. Verse 11. Then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. I'm going to go to verse 19, and I'll carry on a bit with 19, 20, 21. Then I wanted to know the true meaning of the fourth beast, which was different from all the others and most terrifying with its iron teeth and bronze claws, the beast that crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head, and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 of them fell, the horn that looked more imposing than the others, and that had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully. So there's another characteristic, this imposing look. Elsewhere, Daniel will refer to him as a stern-faced king. And so certainly I saw an interview with Trump just a week or two ago, in which he was the interviewer was trying to bring some levity to Trump, and said, brought up his sense of humor and said, you've been known to have a sense of humor, and you make jokes and you can laugh at yourself and what have you. And Trump's attitude at that interview, given what's going on in the world, was it's not time to be funny. Basically, that's what wasn't his exact words, but his response was he wasn't falling for the flattery or for the bait to get him to lighten up a bit. He had a stern face. He has a stern face, and his response in that interview was that it's not time for jokes. It's not time to be funny. This is, things are serious. Things are getting serious. Certainly, his focus on America and Israel, and the damage that's being done to his country, which he's very patriotic about, is something that cuts deep for him, and therefore not a laughing matter, and it's not time for jokes, which is interesting characteristic of this imposing, what Daniel describes as the one who looked more imposing, and elsewhere he describes as a stern-faced king. Again, a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I watched, this horn was waging war against the saints and defeating them, until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favor of the saints of the Most High. And the time came when they possessed the kingdom. So that's the time after Messiah comes and sorts everyone out. Then the saints will possess the kingdom. He gave me this explanation. The fourth beast is a fourth kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones. Notice, he's different. Again, he's not a career politician. He doesn't toe the line like other politicians. He doesn't speak diplomatically like most politicians. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his saints and try to change the set times and laws. The saints will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. Now, just one thing I want to clarify there, because many will say, oh, but Trump is in favor of Christians and Jews, and he's a Christian, and he's what do you mean he speaks against the Most High? So the Most High is God, the Ancient of Days is God, the saints are his elect, God's faithful. So the majority of the church today, the Christendom, the Christian world, the majority are not the true elect of God. They will fall for the deception. They will follow this antichrist. Yeshua said, Matthew 24, verse 24, even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. So if the majority of the church is not the elect, then they will be deceived. They are going to be deceived. And so they will follow the false Messiah. He's not, the scriptures describe him as a beast because from God's perspective, from the kingdom perspective, he is a beast. But from an earthly perspective, he comes as an angel of light, and he's going to have the solutions for the earth. We're told in Revelation that everyone worships him. They are in awe of him because of what he does. And so we shouldn't be looking for this demonic, evil person who comes in like Hitler and can clear and wants to. No, we should be looking for someone who's the hero, the champion, the one who's going to. Trump actually said in his first term that there is a savior, and then kind of laughingly says, "Not me." It's kind of the one above, So he admits, but in that kind of joke, lightheartedness, there was an element of he acknowledges that the world sees him as savior. Certainly, when it comes time to sort out Ukraine, the Middle East conflict, there is no one person on earth today in a better position to sort out those conflicts than Trump. So the saints will be handed over to him. And so my point here is that by being favorable towards the church doesn't mean he's being favorable towards the saints of God, because the saints of God are going to be ostracized by the church. When the time comes and the division starts between those who are in the truth and those who are following the lie, believing, Matthew chapter 7, Yeshua says, "Depart from me, I never knew you." These are the ones who were doing miracles in his name. They say, "Didn't we do this in your name and do that in your name and cast out demons in your name?" These are people who think that they are doing the work of God. And so by being favorable to the church, don't think that he is actually being favorable to God and his elect. It's a ruse. It's a guise. I'm not saying it definitely is. I'm talking about now the true antichrist, the true figure who takes this role. If it is Trump, then that is what will happen, and then that is what is happening. By being friendly, we know that he enters into a covenant, and then he breaks that covenant. Okay, so that's the horns. Chapter 8, verse 9, he says, "Out of one of them came another horn." So this is part of Daniel's vision of the ram and the goat comes and he destroys the ram. And so the goat is Greece, and the horns that come out of the goat are first Alexander the Great, and then his 4 generals, and then another small horn comes up. So when the small horn comes up, it's probably been fulfilled historically, but at the same time, historic fulfillments do carry a future possible fulfillment. So if it is not completely fulfilled historically, then it means that the historical fulfillment is a foreshadowing of what is to come later, the ultimate fulfillment. And so we know that there have been many antichrists who represent characteristics of the final antichrist to come. There have been many messiahs who were representative of the final Messiah who was to come. And so this chapter 8, verse 9's reference to the small horn, both historically and could have still pertained to this other small horn that Daniel has already spoken of. Out of one of them came another horn which started small, but grew in power. to the south and to the east and towards the beautiful land. It grew until it reached the host of heavens and threw some of the starry host down to the earth and trampled on them. It set itself up to be as great as the prince of hosts. It took away the daily sacrifice from him, and the place of his sanctuary was brought low. Because of rebellion, the host of the saints and the daily sacrifice were given over to it. It prospered in everything it did, and truth was thrown to the ground. So there, again, it set itself up, speaking of its self-importance, boastfulness, and it's been given authority even over the saints. So even the saints, and truth is thrown to the ground. So we are living in the time where truth doesn't exist anymore. You look at anything online, and you cannot know if this is the truth or if this is a lie. Is this a real photograph or is it AI? Is this really a quote from someone or is it AI? Is it, you with me? So truth is something which is lost. So he is this boastful. Verse 25. Verse 25 continues. Well, I'll go from verse 23. 23 is the verse where it refers to his stern-facedness. In the latter part of their reign, when the rebels, so now this is again the angel explaining to Daniel the vision, what it means, what this vision that he saw means. And so he's saying, in the latter part of their reign, when rebels have become completely wicked, a stern-faced king, a master of intrigue, another characteristic, which is very important to notice. Not just military power and economic power, but a master of intrigue, will arise. He will become very strong, but not by his own power. He will cause astounding devastation and will succeed in whatever he does. He will destroy the mighty men and the holy people. He will cause deceit to prosper, and he will consider himself superior. When they feel secure, he will destroy many and take his stand against the prince of princes, yet he will be destroyed. So, again, we see the characteristics of this person. He's stern-faced. He's a master of intrigue. He considers himself superior, and he will destroy many. He will commit devastation. And we are lining up for a time in which that is very, very possible. Some will say probable, where the situation in Russia, Ukraine, and the Middle East is ripe for devastation. Many have said the Third World War has already begun. So, more characteristics. Let's continue. Daniel 7, 8, 11, 20, 11, 8, verse 11, verse 25. Let's go to Revelation. Well, let's Daniel chapter 11 first, before we go to Revelation. Daniel chapter 11, verses 36 to 44. I'm focusing, there are many characteristics that are popping up, but I'm focusing mainly on this characteristic of being boastful, because it's one of the characteristics, possibly the characteristic that is most often referred to in the scriptures, and certainly with Trump, it's the first time I've ever seen it in a world leader. Such flagrant boastfulness. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. Yeah. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers, or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortresses, a god unknown to his fathers. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. So I take that to mean that he's going to put a lot of money into war. He honors a god of fortresses. Um, he will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. We are told in Revelation that this beast gets its power from the red dragon. The red dragon represents Satan, Lucifer. Um, and so the foreign god that Daniel is referring to here, I believe, is Lucifer, is where he gets his power and his abilities from. He will make them, he will honor those, he will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people and will distribute the land at a price. That's an interesting reference to possibly the dividing up of Israel and distributing the land of Israel to those who honor him and follow him. At the time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and great fleet of ships. He will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land, that's Israel. Again, not necessarily by military conquest. We are told that he pitches his tent. We're coming to it. He pitches his tent in the beautiful land. So it could be that he takes over. Certainly, he makes it, for the time of this conquest, he makes it his headquarters. Could be a reference to the embassy in Jerusalem. We'll see. He will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leader of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver and of all the riches of Egypt, with the Libyans and the Nubians in submission. But reports from the east and the north will alarm him, and he will set out in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. So that pitching his tents could be what has already happened in the establishing of the American embassy in Jerusalem. It is between the sea and the beautiful mountain. The beautiful mountain is Mount Moriah, where the Temple Mount is, and the embassy is just, I think it's south and west of that position, which would be technically between the sea and the holy mountain. So Revelation 13, verse 5. Revelation 13, verse 5. The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies, to exercise his authority for 42 months. Remember, 42 months is times and half a time, or 1,260 days, which is 3.5 years, according to the biblical year. So Revelation refers to his boastfulness. Then in that passage we come to this very significant event of the head wound. And so the head, strictly speaking, represents the nation. So the nation has a head wound. I've contemplated whether or not the impending economic demise of America could possibly be that head wound. That wound which looks like a mortal wound for that head. Certainly the head, the nation, the ruler, the horn, what Daniel refers to as the horn would be the representative of the head. So I've always thought that an assassination attempt would be maybe a symbolic revelation of that head wound. Most will say, oh, it's just a nick on the ear. That's not really a mortal wound. A head wound is a head wound. He has taken a bullet to the head, however that came about, worked out. Certainly the scriptures reveal that he doesn't die. It looked like it could have been a mortal wound, but it wasn't. And so that could be a symbolic representation of the head, this wound, and that he's wounded, but he stands up and continues. So in verse 3, one of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was astonished and followed the beast. Men worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. And they also worshipped the beast and asked, who is like the beast? Who can make war against him? And so this is the kind of response that I'm seeing on social networks and on the internet following this assassination attempt. Even those who were very left-wing and opposed Trump are now saying things like, such an event shows his character, shows courage, shows the kind of courage and character that this country needs, that this world needs, to overcome all of the chaos and craziness that has overtaken the world. And so people are talking about what happens to people under fire, and the true heart and character of the person is revealed under fire. Some people cower, some people scream in panic, some people just run and want to get out of there and couldn't care about anyone else but saving themselves. And so here we have a demonstration of someone who stood up and, not knowing if there could be other shooters, standing up, exposing himself to encourage the crowd. And so we have commentators now, and people who were very much opposed to him now feel that this is the kind of man that I can follow. People who ridiculed and mocked him and called him the Orange Man now think that this is a leader of leaders and someone we can follow. And so the wonder that the scriptures speak about this person, the wonder, the awe that they see, that they have towards this person, and which causes them to follow this person. How does that come about? So these are all things that are possibilities. We see in Daniel chapter 11, not only is he boastful, not only is he powerful economically, and is the master of intrigue. So not only will he conquer by military force, but he conquers by intrigue. So one could say, I mean, many people do say that Trump is the master of the deal, and if Trump can't make a deal, no one can make the deal. And so he's confident that he can sort out certainly the Ukraine issue in a day. And so not only is he the master of intrigue, but Daniel tells us in chapter 11, verse 32, that he's also a master of flattery. His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. They will set up the abomination that causes desolation. With flattery, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant, but the people who know their God will firmly resist him. So he will, with flattery, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant. So those who turn their backs on God, essentially. The covenant is the covenant that God makes with Israel, and the elect, the Gentile elect of God, are grafted into that covenant. We share in that covenant. It's still a covenant with Israel. So those, certainly of Israel, who have turned their back on the covenant with God and compromise for the things of this world, certainly the majority of Israel today is secular, and embrace this leader because he offers what they long for, even if that looks like a good thing, like peace. And so with flattery, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant. And so he corrupts intrigue, flattery, and boastfulness, self-importance. So in closing, just the last thing I wanted to highlight was in Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, Daniel speaks of this one entering into a covenant with many. And so in September, not September, in October of 2020, remember I spoke about the cycles of 3 years, 3.5 years. So from 2017, 2020, October, September, October is the feast of it's Pesach. No, sorry, it's trumpets. September, October is Yom Teruach, trumpets. So again, it fits the 3.5 years or the 3-year cycles, the 7-year cycles of on roughly around those dates. September, October, the fall feasts, and March, April, the spring feasts. So the middle, the desecration, the setting up of the abomination of desolation, we expect on a March, April, on a Pesach, Passover, because that will then give us the 3.5 years until Messiah comes. So the Abraham Accords were signed on the 23rd of October, 2020. And so it was a covenant with many, which that head, being America, is debatable whether they are maintaining that covenant. Certainly, we will see if he takes another term of office what Trump will do to restore that covenant, or how that covenant plays out. If that is the covenant with the many, it could be a number of things. It's interesting to me, and I'm watching it because of the timing, the cycle of 7 years and 3.5 years. The bottom line in all of this, and this is really my warning to all the church, Christianity, Jews, everyone who now is really thinking that Trump is the hero and he's the champion and he's the savior who's going to sort everything out. We have a concern for our countries, and we would want the best leaders for our countries who are going to do the best for our countries. So that's one thing, and that's a good thing. But we should not be putting any great hope in any politician, in any world government, in any governance of the world, because the scriptures tell us that these things are going to go the way they're going to go, the way they are going. And so there's nothing that's going to change that. This is what is ordained to bring about the whole rule of this one world system. And so just like the globalists, people think that the globalists are the bad guys. They've got the one world system in focus, and Trump's going to sort out that one world thing. He's going to drain the swamp. He's going to clean out, and he's going to bring everything online and do away with this whole one world thinking. It's two wings of the same bird. And so the globalists, being very out there and obvious, could just be the ruse, which, this Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. And so it could be that Trump and that whole camp of thinking is the solution, which is just part of the same process at work. And so us as believers, us as the elect of God, us as those who would follow the scriptures and serve the God of the scriptures, worship and honor him and him alone, we should not be looking towards any world leader for the hope, for the salvation. Remember, no politician, no government. Don't put your trust and hope there. I've stopped putting my trust in science, in medicine, in anything that comes from the authorities. If the authorities say that this is the way it is and what you should do, that's the first question mark, because the authority said so. And so be vigilant, be sober-minded, study the scriptures, go see if these things be so, because we're at a time in which they are happening. It's all coming about, and don't be beguiled into following or supporting or sticking your neck out for the wrong reasons. Amen. Amen. God bless you all.